This is Matthew Cratter from Trade University, and today I want to talk about the dangers of paper Bitcoin, in particular what I'm calling Bitcoin IOUs. We'll talk about Bitcoin futures and the analogies with the gold market and gold futures manipulation. We'll talk about that in another video, and I have discussed it a little bit in the past. But what I want to talk about here is where you buy Bitcoin on a platform, you leave it there, and they say that they owe you some Bitcoin, but you cannot necessarily withdraw it. So let's say you buy some Bitcoin on Robinhood, but currently for at least most customers, they won't let you withdraw the Bitcoin and hold it yourself on a hardware wallet or in your own software wallet. So presumably you're going to make money if the price of Bitcoin goes up, but you don't know if Robinhood is actually holding real Bitcoin for you. There's really no way to verify. You have to trust them. So let's say, for example, that Robinhood has just 100 customers, to make it really simple, and each one holds one paper Bitcoin, in other words, one Bitcoin IOU. So that'd be a total of 100 Bitcoin IOUs. Now, in a perfect world, in a world where their IOUs are fully backed, Robinhood would hold 100 real Bitcoin to back these 100 Bitcoin IOUs. This is what we would call fully backed Bitcoin IOUs, where they held the actual Bitcoin in reserve. Now, if Robinhood at any point in time, and this is important, maybe not today, but maybe in the future, if Robinhood turned out at some point in time to be dishonest or desperate or stupid or anything like this, you never know what a company is going to do, they might end up backing those 100 Bitcoin IOUs with only 20 real Bitcoin, and maybe even 0 Bitcoin if they're especially stupid or especially dishonest. We saw earlier this year that Robinhood does not especially care about the welfare of its retail investors. It really is a platform that's set up, ironically, to steal from the poor and give to the rich, and to provide all this order flow to Ken Griffin and Citadel, and to make the VC backers of the company happy. We saw earlier this year again how Robinhood restricted trading in all these names, which was pretty outrageous and caused me to drop them as a service. Robinhood still has something like 30 million users, and a lot of them, I have to assume, own Bitcoin on the platform. But none of them can withdraw the Bitcoin currently, except for perhaps a small beta group. They've been saying that they're about to introduce wallets, etc. We will see. But right now, if you buy your Bitcoin on Robinhood, you need to sell it, and in order to exit the position, in order to quote unquote take profits or withdraw the money in the form of US dollars. So you cannot withdraw it and hold it on a hardware wallet. You can do this at Coinbase. You can buy, or Strike or Kraken or Gemini, you can buy Bitcoin, withdraw it, and hold it on a Trezor or other hardware wallet. So the thing about companies like Robinhood is that you really need to trust them. And you have to trust that their IOUs are fully backed with real Bitcoin. What happens if Bitcoin goes up 100% overnight? They owe you that 100% return, but they don't have the Bitcoin. This is how companies go insolvent. It's bad for two reasons. Bitcoin IOUs, paper Bitcoin, are bad for two reasons. The first reason is the whole point of Bitcoin is to hold it yourself. This is what we're talking about, financial self-sovereignty and taking control of your finances. And the point is not to have to trust someone else. Trusting your bank is what the traditional fiat financial system is all about. And history has shown that you cannot trust your bank, you cannot trust your central bank, you cannot trust your government, unless you're extremely, extremely naive. Here's a perfect example from a very civilized, advanced country, Cyprus, where they confiscated 47.5% of savings. The bank depositors basically just had that haircut taken out of their accounts, and this is what was called a bail-in. So this does happen. This happened in 2013. It happened in a very advanced, nice country. So it really could happen anywhere. If you're finding this video helpful so far, be sure to hit that subscribe and like button. Share this with a few friends, and please do subscribe if you've been watching my videos for a while and haven't subscribed yet. So that is the first reason that Bitcoin IOUs are bad. It goes against the whole founding purpose of Bitcoin, and it forces you to trust a company. But it's also bad for another reason that we've talked about a little bit before. If there are only 21 million real Bitcoin, according to Satoshi's code, and it's very difficult to change this code because you can change it, but no one will go along with you, etc. So there are these network effects protecting Bitcoin. But if there are only 21 million real Bitcoin and lots of Bitcoin IOUs or paper Bitcoin, then the effective supply of Bitcoin is actually much higher than 21, or at least it has that illusion. According to the protocol itself, there can only be 21 million Bitcoin, but banks and brokerages and other corrupt groups have the ability to sell you as much paper Bitcoin as you want, as many paper Bitcoin IOUs as you want. It's just like selling the Brooklyn Bridge. They could sell the Brooklyn Bridge to multiple people, even though there's just one bridge. And of course, this only becomes a problem if all those people decide to actually visit the bridge that they've just bought and to claim it. This is what Wall Street's famous for, selling the same thing multiple times, and this was one of the problems. This is one of the things that brought down the banking system during the Great Financial Crisis, the equivalent of doing this on a small pool of real mortgages, and then this mountain, this pyramid of derivatives built on top of that. So we have the Brooklyn Bridge problem, you might call it. But this Brooklyn Bridge problem does cut both ways. Even though excess paper Bitcoin increases the circulating supply of Bitcoin or fake plus real Bitcoin, and therefore may help to suppress the price. So if you go buy a Bitcoin IOU rather than buying Bitcoin itself, you may not be contributing to that supply shortage of Bitcoin, and your demand is sort of being pushed off into the ether, I might say. But it could also lead to massive spikes in the price of Bitcoin if there's ever what we might call a bank run. This is very common in really going back hundreds of years. It used to happen in Europe when the goldsmiths would issue more paper receipts redeemable for physical gold that they held in their vaults, but there'd be more demand on that, more paper IOUs than there was actually gold in the vaults to back it up. This led to multiple bank runs in the US as well in the 19th century when things were a little more free-floating. If a bank or brokerage or goldsmith or whomever issues more paper Bitcoin than they have real Bitcoin to back it, and if a lot of people demand their Bitcoin, demand to withdraw it, or they demand to take profits on their Bitcoin, if it's recently gone up a lot, and obviously Bitcoin can spike quite a bit, which makes this very dangerous. If you are issuing paper Bitcoin, it's like you're short Bitcoin. You do not have enough Bitcoin to make all your customers whole. And if this happens, especially if there's a giant spike in Bitcoin's price and there's a huge demand to withdraw the Bitcoin or to take profits, the bank or the brokerage like Robinhood may need to go on the open market and buy Bitcoin itself to satisfy these demands, and certainly to hedge itself against any further Bitcoin price spikes. So paradoxically, while paper Bitcoin helps to create more supply and suppress the price of Bitcoin, it also creates a systemic risk that cuts our way, that is actually very useful for people who hold their own Bitcoin and control their own private keys. Because if there is this short squeeze, this demand, very similar to the kind of short squeeze we saw in GameStop and AMC earlier this year, this could cause a tremendous price spike in Bitcoin as all this demand comes to the market. And these large brokerages or banks are forced to go out and try to hunt down some physical, i.e. real Bitcoin. So this would be very good for actual holders of Bitcoin. This is what happened in a bank run. So the analogy is a bank run on the gold in the bank. If there's not enough gold in the bank to make all the depositors happy, then these banks that don't have enough gold will quickly go insolvent and have to close their doors. The paper claims that have been circulating on that gold will turn out to be worthless. They won't be worth anything more than the paper they're printed on. And so then what you would have is huge demand in that town, in that county, in that state, in that country for physical gold. And this really can create a form of contagion where everyone is running to their bank with their paper certificates, their IOUs, their gold IOUs, or their paper gold, and trying to redeem their paper claims for real physical gold. And this is how you ended up in many points in history having multiple banks fail. And something similar could certainly happen with Bitcoin as well. We can read about the Panic of 1837 when the banks in New York City ran out of gold and silver in a similar sort of bank run. So please don't buy Bitcoin on Robinhood. You're getting a Bitcoin IOU. This company has already shown itself to be fairly shady and untrustworthy, in my opinion. Also, if you buy your Bitcoin on Coinbase or Kraken or Gemini or Strike or on the Cash App or in PayPal, do not leave your Bitcoin there. The real question actually is, do these companies even today, even big companies like Coinbase, do they have enough Bitcoin to allow everyone who has their Bitcoin on Coinbase to withdraw it? I think this would be a very interesting experiment. What happens if all of you, as soon as possible, withdraw your Bitcoin from Coinbase and Kraken and Gemini and Strike and Cash App and everywhere else and move it to a hardware wallet? Let's say there are currently about 150,000 subscribers to this channel. If all of you do this today or in the very, very near future, something interesting might happen. And if all Bitcoiners did this, if everyone who's holding GBTC sold it, and if everyone moved their paper Bitcoin into real Bitcoin, this could get quite interesting. If you're wondering how to withdraw your Bitcoin to a hardware wallet, I'll link to this video that teaches you how to buy it on Strike, for example, then withdraw it to a Trezor. So you can watch that. Just to summarize, leaving your Bitcoin on an exchange is potentially bad for you because it can be lost or hacked, or they might decide not to give you real Bitcoin in exchange for your Bitcoin IOU. It's also very bad for the Bitcoin ecosystem. This is what politicians and central bankers want you to do because centralization means that they can control it. If Coinbase holds a lot of Bitcoin, then it becomes a target for not just hackers, but even worse people like politicians, central bankers, and these people who want to, at some point, who may want to even confiscate your Bitcoin. And this is what happened under the Executive Order 6102 in 1933 or 1934, whenever it was. Roosevelt was able to confiscate all the U.S. gold because it was already, most of it was sitting in bank vaults. And we don't want a similar situation. If everyone holds their own private keys, if everyone holds their own Bitcoin, we would have to, in order for the U.S. government or another government to confiscate all the Bitcoin, they would have to go door to door with guns. And this is just not practical in a country of 350 million people. But if the Bitcoin is centralized and held by just a few big players like Coinbase and Gemini and Kraken and Binance, it becomes much easier to confiscate it, and it becomes much easier for hackers to steal it. The whole point of Bitcoin is to hold your own Bitcoin, to hold the real thing, and to not outsource that responsibility to people who in the past have proven themselves to be very, very untrustworthy, like large companies, central bankers, and politicians. This is what we mean when we say, not your keys, not your coins. And when you withdraw that Bitcoin and hold it on a Trezor, you will be controlling your own private keys. The Trezor or other hardware wallet, Cold Card's another good one, they will provide you with a 12-word phrase, 12 words in a certain order, or 24 words in a certain order, that is a backup of your private keys in case that hardware wallet gets destroyed or stolen. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit that subscribe and like button. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.